verses in this last section of the Bhagavad-Gita, they are about Krishna's call for bhakti. And you can look at these verses as kind of Krishna advertising devotional service to every living entity and calling out to him. So you will see that a lot of assurances that he will give in these verses. He will also present himself as somebody who is very easy to please. And he'll also say that how bhakti is available to every single living entity, no matter who they are. Sometimes we feel that, oh, Vedas and this the Vedic culture, one has to be really pakka and really pure and everything in order to approach God. That is well and true. But in the path of bhakti, Krishna will say that there is no bar. Anybody can approach him regardless of who they are in the Varnashram system. So let's continue with text 23 onwards.
Can you read the English maybe?
Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. So we already talked about that, how Krishna allows that worship of other demigods in the Vedas, but only to engage people who are not interested in worshiping him. But he says that they are actually worshiping him indirectly, but they're doing it in the wrong way. Avidhi purvakam.
I am the
only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. Because not understanding Krishna's true nature and then worshipping somebody else, because whom they are worshipping, they are also not permanent, or they are not the highest. So they also fall down along with their worshippers. So this is a famous verse. We'll recite this. Yanti devavata devan pitrin yanti pritivata bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti madhyajino pimam.
Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings, and those who worship me will live with me. So next time you meet someone and they say, you can just worship anything and it's the same result. You can, not that you want to, beat them with it, but at least one can understand that's actually not true, that our destination is determined by our intention. And where we are placing our intention determines where we are going to go. So it's not that all paths lead to the same. It's, our individual choice where we want to go. So.
And that too also, like Krishna says, those who worship the demigods, who worship the ancestors, in order to be able to go to those planets, the worship is very difficult. And one has to worship the demigods with perfection in order to reach their planet. So most of the time people, they just do a half-hearted job of worshiping the demigods without proper procedure. So they don't really have any destination to go to.
This is a very famous verse again. These are all famous verses.
Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti upahitam asnami prayatatmanaha. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. So Krishna is saying this verse in contrast to the previous verse where he says, and those who worship me will live with me. So somebody may ask that, oh, worshipping demigods is so difficult, worshipping the ancestors is also difficult, worshipping ghosts and spirits is also difficult. So is your worship, Krishna, is it also very difficult, or is it more difficult than them? Or is it easier than worshipping them? So Krishna really addresses our fear very quickly here, and he says that to worship me is very, very easy. All you need is a leaf. If you don't have a leaf, you can offer a flower. If you don't have a flower, you can offer a fruit. Or if you don't have anything, you can just offer some water. But the main thing is with love and devotion. Those things have to be offered with love and devotion.
And there were stories over stories. Right now, today's we already have, but maybe some other time we'll tell you stories about how Krishna would, there's a story of how this lady, she was so overwhelmed in love that she was actually offering the banana peels. And and she was throwing the bananas, and Krishna accepted that because it was offered in love. So like that, if one's heart is filled with love and devotion, then Krishna will accept. So
and then he's also saying here that you don't have to do an elaborate process of like yagya and worshipping in a very elaborate way. You just have to offer these simple things with love.
This is again another famous verse.
All the verses are famous in this chapter. Yat karosi yadashnasi yajjuhosi dadasi yat tapasyashi kanteya tat kurushva madarpanam.
Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. So again, Krishna is saying that whatever you do, anyways, we have to do something, right? So just do that. Okay, do we have time? Thus, it is the duty of everyone to mold his life in such a way that he will not forget Krishna in any circumstance. Everyone has to work for maintenance of his body and soul together, and Krishna recommends herein that one should work for him. Everyone has to eat something to live. Therefore, he should accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna. Any civilized man has to perform some religious ritualistic ceremonies. Therefore, Krishna recommends, do it for me. And this is called Archana. Everyone has a tendency to give something in charity. Krishna says, give it to me. And this means that all surplus money accumulated should be utilized in furthering this Krishna consciousness movement. Nowadays, people are very much inclined to the meditational process, which is not practical in this age. But if anyone practices meditating on Krishna 24 hours a day by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra around his beads, he's surely the greatest meditator and the greatest yogi, as substantiated by the 6th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. Text 28.
In this way, you will be free from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. So this is, Krishna is giving the assurance that if you just work in this way, you don't have to really do some really big things. Just offer whatever you do to me, and this consciousness, if you act for the rest of your life, then you will come to me. Samoham sarva bhuteshu name desha asti na priya ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mai teteshu chapyaham.
I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all, but whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So Krishna is seated in the heart as a super soul, and one of the qualities of the super soul is that he's always neutral. And yet when we offer him, and he doesn't need anything from us. That's the other part. The Krishna is self Atma Rama, which means that he's happy, he's self-sufficient, he doesn't need, but still, when we offer something, then he accepts it.
Sometimes people question that, why do people worship God? Is God like in need of our worship? But that is not true actually. He allows us to worship him so that we can become pure and we can come and be with him permanently.
There's a very nice example given in Srimad Bhagavatam about how when you decorate the, like in a mirror, when you look at a mirror, you see a reflection. And then when you decorate your face, then the reflection also gets decorated, right? So by loving Krishna, we're actually loving ourselves. By glorifying Krishna, we are getting glorified, right? So it's the best kind of self-love.
And this verse is a very reassuring verse that here in the previous verse, Krishna said that he's equal to everybody. But how equal and how liberal Krishna is, you can see in this verse. Api cheta suduracharo bhajate mamananya bhak sadureva samantavya samyak vyavastito hi saha. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. So this is kind of a very hopeful verse that...
I think the next one also we can read it.
Yeah, then we can discuss. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma saswar shantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati.
He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. I love this last line. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. So I guess Krishna is saying in these two verses that even if there are some faults, and who doesn't have faults, right? And even if, in the course of trying, sometimes people say, well, I really want to do it, but what if I'm not able to keep up, right? What if I make a mistake? And what if as I try to aspire for this higher standards, I fall down? So Krishna is saying it doesn't matter. Even if someone actually commits an activity which is really abominable, but if they are actually properly situated, and that being properly situated means that they don't give up. Just like if you have seen a child who's trying to walk, a baby who's trying to walk, they fall, and then what do? They don't sit there and cry. I mean, they might cry for some time, but they pick themselves up again and they start walking. So it's to be expected that we will fall down, we will fall off, from our path. But as long as we keep coming back and we keep trying, then Krishna is saying that that person will actually eventually become purified. He'll become righteous and attain lasting peace.
And this is also, in a way, kind of suggestion or warning by Krishna that if you see my devotee maybe doing something which is not right, don't judge him, because in my eyes he's a sadhu. And very quickly whatever bad habits or whatever bad qualities you see in that person, they are going to go away, because he's serving me. He's not going anywhere else. So indirectly Krishna is saying that treat my devotees with utmost care, and never offend my devotees.
O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, vaishyas, merchants, workers, can attain the supreme destination. So traditionally, there were some people who were not really, they would not traditionally engage in the study of the Upanishads and the Vedanta, right? So some of them would be like the merchant, the Vaishyas or the Shudras, or even the women. They did not have access to that. And so it is actually Lord Chaitanya's, great contribution that he kind of broke that storehouse and he brought it to the streets, where he has made it accessible to even people who ordinarily would not actually engage, even though there are narrations of great scholars, women scholars, and but those were the exceptions. Those were not the rule. And yet now we see all over the world, with whatever background we may have, we are able to approach and attain the highest destination. So birth has become completely a non-issue.
Because in the varnashram system, all the varnas in ashram, they have strict qualifications. And somebody who doesn't have the qualification, they won't be allowed in that varna or ashrama. But here in Bhakti, Krishna is saying, he's just mentioning a few, but even you will see in Bhagavatam that even a dog eater, a chandala, anybody, no matter who they are, how fallen they are all eligible for practicing devotional service. And Krishna is welcoming everybody to his supreme destination.
How much more this is so of the righteous brahmanas, the devotees and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me.
And this is the final verse of this chapter. It's also the conclusion of Bhagavad-Gita. It will be repeated. This is the only verse in Bhagavad-Gita that is repeated twice, once here and once in the 18th chapter. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhya jimam namaskuru mame vasyashi yuktvevam atmanam matparayanaha. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So again, this guarantee you will come to me. You'll see that this phrase is repeated many times by Krishna. Here is asking for simple things, that in order to become my devotee, one can always think of Krishna by becoming his devotee, and one can become his devotee by a simple process of just offering him obeisances and worshiping him. And by completely being absorbed in him, then Krishna says, you will surely come to me. So that's the end of
this ninth chapter. And now we'll get into our presentation, which is actually very different today.
So we'll start with we talked about bhakti. Krishna is talking about bhakti, but bhakti is not just a sentiment.
I don't think you've shared.
Oh, I haven't shared. No, that's not. But sometimes people misunderstand bhakti as a sentiment, or I don't really know what devotional service really is. So this is very scientifically explained by a great devotee boy, Prahlad, who was the son of Hiranyakashipu. And he said here, he describes the 9 processes of devotional service, how one can engage in devotional service or bhakti by any of these 9 processes.
So just like in the Ashtanga Yoga practice, there are 8 processes of Ashtanga Yoga, right, that we talked about. So in bhakti, there are 9 processes. So they're called, so should we?
Yeah. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dashyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam.
Prahlad Maharaj said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person. So we wanted to show you this.
Yeah.
So, is it working?
Sure.
So this is Prahlad Maharaj. And he used to speak to his friends. It's a very beautiful story. Shravanam is hearing.
Most important step.
It's the first step of bhakti, where we start our process with hearing. And then whatever we hear, we repeat it. So that's kirtanam.
So talking about Krishna, chanting his names is kirtanam.
And then naturally, when we hear and when we speak, there is a natural remembrance or a meditation that happens in the heart, which is called remembrance.
Or when we like read something from the Bhagavad-Gita or scriptures and think about it, that is also smarana. Father. So serving, cleaning the temple, going to the temple, going to the holy dham, these are all serving the lotus feet.
Archanam is worshipping the deity. So there is a whole process that is being recommended for worshipping Krishna in his deity form.
Vandanam is offering prayers. So there's so many beautiful prayers given in the Bhagavatam, even in Bhagavad-Gita. So one can recite those prayers for the pleasure of Krishna.
And then the dasyam is actually taking on the instructions and the desire of Krishna and
Spiritual master.
Yeah, and then living your life according to those desires.
Sakhyam is serving Lord as a friend. So taking on the anxiety of Krishna as one's own anxiety in helping other living entities come to him. That is Sakhyam.
And Atma Nivedanam is the final thing, which is the complete surrender, body, mind, and words, dedicating one's complete life to the satisfaction of Krishna. So these 9 are actually considered to be
the 9. And one can reach perfection even with 1 or 2 or 3, whatever one can do. Doesn't mean that one has to do all 9. Even with one process, one can achieve complete perfection.
In fact, out of these 9, and now we'll see there is this graph which will show us. So this is actually a very, very beautiful. This is a very, very beautiful. So the bhakti is actually considered to be like a little seed, and it sprouts, and then it becomes like this big tree or a plant which gives beautiful, fragrant flowers. And so there's a whole process how this plant develops and what are the different stages. And I think we mentioned it to you earlier on that there is a whole, it's like a roadmap, and you can see where you are at, or where one is at. And so we can't.
Probably way down in the bottom somewhere.
There it is. Just give us a minute because we want to zoom in and we want to show you. Yeah, there it is. Can you see?
No, I have to share it.
Okay.
This is a close-up of that image. So how the bhakti starts and how it grows and what is the culmination of bhakti, that is being described in this beautiful presentation. So bhakti starts with a seed of Shraddha. Shraddha means where we put our heart, or where we put our little bit of tiny amount of faith. It's Ado Shraddha, which means starting with a little bit of faith. That, yeah, let me inquire about this process. Let me find out, this sounds really good. Let me look into it. That is Ado Shraddha, a tiny bit of faith to start with.
And then from that tiny bit of faith, so bhakti, actually we want to just back off a little bit and just make this point that bhakti comes from a bhakta. There is no other source of bhakti. Bhakti doesn't come from Krishna. There is no pious work or no karma that can generate bhakti. So the only way that one can actually get this tiny seed is actually through the heart of a devotee. Just like, like a virus, right? A person is contagious. So yeah, so just like when you have a virus, right? You hang out with another person who has virus, then you get infected. So same way, this process of bhakti is actually transmitted through the association of a devotee. And so the second stage here is sadhu sangha, which means that one gets the good fortune of coming in contact with a devotee.
And associating with devotee, hearing with devotees, sharing one's heart with devotees, serving the devotees, engaging in different services with the devotees, that is all sadhu sangha. And that is the sum and substance of bhakti actually. All the 9 stages that you see here, they're all actually happening because of sadhu sangha.
And as you can see, when you come in the association of devotees, you immediately, this Kleshagni and Shubhada, and we talked about this. So Kleshagni, these are the first 2 tiny leaves that sprout out of this little sapling. And one of the leaf is called Kleshagni, which means that bhakti destroys all miseries.
So there are 5 types of miseries that are described, not just a toothache or losing some money, but the 5 types of misery that is described. The first one is avidya, which means ignorance. So we suffer because of ignorance in every situation. The second one is asmita. I think we don't have time.
Yeah, we don't have time to get into so much detail, but yeah, suffice it as
maybe one day we can do that.
Yeah, and then Shubhada, which means that it's a beginning of all auspiciousness. And then,
so then when one associates with the sadhus or devotees, then what happens? In the association of sadhus, one does bhajana kriya, which means the practice of devotional service. One learns how to chant, one learns how to understand the principles of Krishna consciousness, one learns how to serve. So this is bhajana kriya.
So all the practices of bhakti. And again, there are wonderful details of what to expect in this stage of bhakti. So just a couple which are very fascinating is this is the stage of utsamahi, which means that this initial burst of enthusiasm, I got this. And sometimes
I'm going to be here, like I will be there every single day, and so many things that I'm really into it.
Yeah. Or even the fact that I know it all. Sometimes there's a sense of feeling like, yeah, I got this, so that's one. And then there's so anyways, there's just many different things here.
What does anartha mean?
So we'll get there just after this, after bhajana kriya. So Ghanataral means today I feel enthusiastic, tomorrow I don't feel so enthusiastic. So this is to be expected in this stage of bhajana kriya.
Oscillating resolve.
Yeah.
Things like that. Anartha nivritti is the next step, which is clearing of unwanted things from our heart and our mind, giving up bad habits, whatever the obstacles to our practicing sadhana are removed. Our attraction for other things which are obstacles to our bhakti, they are removed.
So we have a lot of stuff, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of stuff that's blocking our vision of Krishna. So all those unwanted things are removed from the heart. So that's the third stage, anartha nivritti. And then anartha nivritti is also called what's unsteady devotional life, which means that our bhakti is always in a state of like a very unsteady ground. Now from here, once one's heart has been cleansed of a lot of these, most of these unwanted things, then you enter into the next stage of bhakti, which is called nishtha bhakti. So nishtha bhakti means now I have an unshakable resolve. Nothing can actually get between me and Krishna. And I'm situated on a very, very solid platform. So again, there's a lot, we are just really scratching the surface here. Even Nishtha Bhakti, it's like there is a whole book that goes into great detail on each of these sections. So that's Nishtha. And then, so after Anartha Nivritti, our Bhakti actually goes on a very fast track.
So till Nishtha, we are still kind of forcing ahead with our determination. But after Nishtha, that's when the real devotional service actually begins. You can see that here, it's all, in one sense, all under the ground. And after after Nishtha, it actually comes out. Ruchi is basically when you actually start having taste for chanting Krishna's names, taste for hearing about him, taste for glorifying him. Ruchi means taste. So one develops a natural taste for doing it. Nobody has to tell us to do it, and neither our mind has to say, oh, today I'm not feeling like it, or we don't have to be convinced by anybody to do it.
And then from there, we get to the stage of asakti, which is intense attachment. Just like, you see sometimes a boy being attached to a girl, or just any kind of, we can even look into our own heart. And we all have asakti. We have this intense attachment to some object. So we transfer that deep attachment to Krishna. And now we are situated on a very, very solid platform.
So asakti is described as the birds, like when a flowering fruit tree, first the birds come out, so that is asakti, and then the next step is the flowers come out, that is called bhava, which means one develops transcendental emotions towards Krishna. And then Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion book, it describes in great detail what are those symptoms of that bhava.
And bhava is the stage at which one begins to understand what one's spiritual identity is in the spiritual world, what is one's particular relationship with Krishna, and a lot of details about one's spiritual form are actually, they begin to be revealed at the stage of bhava. And then from here, as you can see, there's a full blossoming of this flower, and it becomes prema, which is this desired, goal of our bhakti practice, is right to experience this deep love for Krishna. And then one can engage with Krishna in all these different rasas, whether it's in the rasa of conjugal love, or parental love, or friendship, or servitude. Yeah. So it's
So this is in short, like the different stages of the development of bhakti.
So what we wanted to do now is actually tell a story. And in this story, you'll also, yes, we'll share this link. I think it's a great image to look at, and in this story, one will actually see the development of all of these different, yes, we want to elaborate this plant at a different time. It's a very, very, very nice thing. And this book, actually, Madhurya Kadambini, is unbelievable. Maybe once, at some point, maybe we'll do a whole presentation just on this Madhurya Kadambini.
Yeah.
I think it'll be nice. So on that, so let's get into, should we? I just wanted to mute once.
You wanted to music?
Yeah. Just give us a minute. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, we are good. So this is a story of a thief called Govardhan. And so this thief was actually a dacoit, and he came from a long lineage of dacoits. So his father was a dacoit, his grandfather was a dacoit. And as when you grow up in a family, where in your previous generations you've had family members who have practiced a certain craft, then a lot of wisdom tends to get passed on. So one of the nuggets of wisdom that was handed over to Govardhan was that whatever you do in your life, don't ever listen to any class on the Bhagavad-Gita.
Don't listen to Hari Katha, because if a thief listens to Hari Katha, then how will he maintain his business of thievery? He'll give up his business. So his father said, never listen to Hari Katha.
So one time, but in the villages in India, traditionally, in the evening, there would be some speaker, just like what we are doing here. In the evening, after the day's work is finished, then they would all come together and they would sit and they would hear something about Krishna and Lord Ram. And so there was such a talk going on in the village where Govardhan happened to be walking by. And as he was walking, so what he would do normally is that whenever he would see that there was some talk like this going on, he would close his ears with his fingers so that he could, follow the instructions given to him by his father. And so, but that day, as he did that, all of a sudden, there was the sharp thorn that pricked his foot. And so he immediately, had to let go of his ears and hold on to that foot of his. And so for just this brief moment when he did that, this particular speaker who was speaking on the Srimad Bhagavatam, he was saying a simple statement that demigods don't have shadows.
So that's the only sentence that came in his ear. As soon as it came in his ear, Govardhan became really alert and he again put his fingers in his ears. By mistake, I heard this katha, but I should not be hearing it. So he again closed his ears and he walked away. And he was just happily walking, and he walked into the forest. But lo and behold, what happened was there were some other dacoits who were waiting to find a prey. So they pounced on him and they were looking for somebody who was healthy to use him as a human sacrifice to goddess Kali. So they caught hold of him and they prepared him and they asked him to bow down his head in front of the deity of Kali.
So when he did that, all of a sudden he was very afraid and he was thinking that, oh, this is the goddess and I should just submit. But all of a sudden in his mind, he remembered how he had heard this statement that the demigods don't have shadows. And then he looked at this statue or this deity and he saw her shadow. So he thought, oh, I have nothing to be scared of. And so he immediately became enlivened. And then he decided to use a trick. And he told the people who had kidnapped him that, hey, I'm very happy to be sacrificed. But you don't want to sacrifice me in this condition. I'm all dirty. Why don't you first let me go take a bath? And then I'll come back, and then and then we'll come back, and then you can do this. So they were very happy. They said, oh wow, here we have, he's a strong, stout man, and now he's even willing.
He said, I'm really concerned about your welfare. You see, if you sacrifice me in this dirty condition, you will probably get some sinful reaction, and Kali will become upset with you. So all I'm doing is thinking about your welfare. So let me take a bath first, and when I'm clean, and I'll pray to Kali for you, and then you can sacrifice me at that point.
So as soon as so they were they thought, okay, looks like he's on board with us. So they let him go and take a bath in the water. As soon as he jumped into the water, into the river, he just swam as fast as he could, and he got out of their clutches. And once he got out of their clutches, he was thinking, I think my father didn't really know what he was talking about. Looks like, listening to this katha helped me with my profession. So it's really not such a bad thing.
So happy, he went back home, and next day, the same Pandit was again speaking in the evening in the village. So now this time, this dacoit, Govardhan, he very skeptically, he approaches that place, and he sits down far in the back, so nobody can notice him. Because his appearance was kind of a little bit rough, like a dacoit. So he wanted to kind of hide behind everybody. And he started listening.
So once he started listening to the speaker, today, the speaker was speaking about the beautiful form of Krishna. So he said, oh, when Krishna goes to the forest, he's decorated with these beautiful jewels. And he has this beautiful golden crown. And immediately the dacoit's ears perked up. It's like, oh, golden crown? So, that's, and he said, not just a golden crown, but he even has beautiful necklaces that he wears around his neck.
And his beautiful earrings. And he has this elephant pearl under his nose. That's most beautiful.
And so, the thief was thinking.
And then what happened is the Pandit went on to describe Krishna's other pastimes. But this thief was only interested in the necklaces. And as soon as the Pandit stopped talking about the jewels, this thief lost interest and he kind of dozed off. He kind of slept off. And that's all he remembered.
So he was, but again, he woke up to the fact that this speaker was speaking about the rasa dance. And so in the rasa dance, Krishna expands himself into so many different forms, and he dances with each gopi. So then the thief Govardhan was thinking, oh, so many different forms of Krishna means so many different crowns and so many different necklaces. And he was thinking again, maybe, my father, this is, he doesn't understand. Like, if I could just somehow get this will be the biggest heist of my life.
This will be like my coup of my lifetime.
Yeah, and we don't have to worry about this, So finally, he asked, the speaker, he said, just like when we end a class and we say any questions. So,
So he waited till everybody left because he didn't want to be exposed. So at the end of the class, when the Pandit is just about to wrap up, he very sheepishly approaches him. And then the Pandit got really alarmed because he realized that this guy is dangerous. So he said, hey, whatever you want to take it from the donation box, whatever money you want, just leave me alone. He said, no, I'm not interested in the money. I have a
bigger plan. I have a bigger plan. I just want to know who this boy is. And so he said, oh, his name is Shyamasundar. And he said, oh, okay. And where does he live? He says he lives in Vrindavan. So he thought, oh, okay, now I have the address and I have the name. And so he said, all right, thank you very much. And so he went off. And, sometimes it happens, right? And maybe I remember this used to happen to me, my uncle or someone would.
So this was a difficult names because he has never heard these names before. Shyama Sundar and Vrindavan. He said, I will just forget them. So in order to not forget them from the village to his house, he said, let me just continuously say these names so I don't forget them.
So he keeps even like I was saying that even when we're growing up, like sometimes people would say, okay, you want to go get this stuff from the shop, and you keep saying those two things, bread and butter and this and that, and you just want to memorize the list. So he started chanting. He started basically just saying those two names. Shyama Sundar Vrindavan, Shyama Sundar Vrindavan, Shyama Sundar Vrindavan. And like that, he arrived at his home and his sister was there. And she said, Govardhan, what are you saying? And he said, no, I cannot afford to forget this, and
I'm planning something very big and it's very important for that.
And so I have to remember this. So he went to sleep, trying to, recite and, keep remembering these two words. But when he slept and he woke up the next morning, he had forgotten the name.
He could only remember Shyama Sundar, but he forgot Vrindavan. So he became really upset. He was just really taxing his brain. Shyama Sundar, but where does he live? That's not coming to his head. So he gets really upset. He said, okay, I have to go back to that Pandit and find out where does this boy live. I have to really find him. So in the evening, he again rushes to that place where the katha was being held, but there is nothing there. It's an empty field because that was the last day of the class and the Pandit had left. So
he was very, very distraught. And so he went around the village and started asking the villagers, hey, do you know the address of the speaker who was there yesterday? And I'd really like to see him. And so somebody gave him the address of some place in Rajasthan. And he said, oh, he just went back to his village. And so he said, all right, I have to go find him. So he goes, makes this long journey, and finally arrives in Rajasthan and goes and knocks on the door of this Pandit. And when this Pandit opens the door and he sees Govardhan, he's so afraid. He's like, now what do you want? And so Govardhan says, well, I've just come here to find out from you one thing, which is, what was the name of that boy that you told me about? So he said, his name is Shyama Sundar. He said, that's a very long name. Why can we not just call him Shyam? So the Pandit said, no, Shyam Sundar is his full name. There are so many boys in Vrindavan who are called Shyam, but there's only one Shyama Sundar. And he said, what if I decided to shorten your name, and instead of Govardhan, I started calling you Gobar. So Gobar in Hindi means cow dung. So Govardhan became really upset. He said, no, if you do that,
He took out his knife and said, okay, if you say any more words, I'll just chop off your head.
So he said, okay, Shyama Sundar. So now, where does he live? So he lives in Vrindavan. So then he said, can you tell me a little bit more about him? What are his habits? What is he like?
Because in order to make my feast successful, I really need to know the subject, the victim. So tell me how he looks and what are his habits and what time he leaves home, and give me all the details you can so I can prepare myself. So this Pandit says, well, the one thing that he really likes is fresh butter and mixed with sugar candy, right?
Yeah.
Sugar candy. So Krishna really loves eating that, this boy. So I said, okay, well, that's good enough for me. I can't remember too many things. So he said, okay, I'll arrange for the butter and sugar candy to capture him. And so now from this Pandit's home, he starts walking back to his own village. It's a 3-day journey. And on the way back, he said, this time I'm not going to forget. So he's continuously chanting Shama Sundar Vrindavan. And what happens is, while he's doing that, he suddenly randomly starts experiencing sadness in his heart. And sometimes tears starts coming from his eyes, but he doesn't know what's going on with him. But he says, okay, this is something, I don't know. I'm just continuing.
At the same time, he's also very attracted. You know, he's thinking that, yeah, these tears are coming, but this feeling that I'm experiencing as I'm chanting, I don't want to stop. And so he keeps walking, and he doesn't eat anything. So at this point, you know, the question that one can think about is that, is Govardhan going to really meet Krishna and in Vrindavan? And what does it really take for one to actually meet Krishna? What is the qualification?
Is it our so Govardhan has this greed, intense greed, because he wants to loot Krishna, and he also he's making the best endeavor he can, but is that enough? And it is said that, yeah, those are needed, but the third thing that is needed is Krishna's anugraha, which means Krishna's mercy.
And I think we mentioned that earlier, that even in the pastime of Mother Yashoda binding Krishna, there are always these 2 inches, right? Too short. And so one is our own endeavor, which is actually a manifestation of our intense greed. So in the material world, this greed actually binds us to this material world. But the same greed, when it is reposed for Krishna, becomes the doorway to actually meeting him and finding him. And then when Krishna sees that greed, when Krishna sees a single tear, coming into the eyes of a devotee, then he's immediately bought by that, and he decides to reveal himself. So finally, Govardhan arrives in Vrindavan, and he comes to Mathura actually, and he stays there in this place called Vishram Ghat. And there he inquires from everybody where he can find Krishna.
And there are some pandas. Pandas means like some local priests who are very expert at approaching travelers and coax them into doing some puja and getting some donation from them. So they start approaching this Govardhan and say, I can really do a very good puja for your ancestors, and all you have to do is give this much money, and then your ancestors will be taken care of. And then somebody else approaches him.
I was just thinking when we were, when you're saying that how this is also something that can happen to us, right? That in our desire to find Krishna, we may find so many subsidiary processes that might be presented to us as allurements, that if you do this, then maybe you'll get this, or if you do this, you'll get this. But Govardhan's desire to somehow get or steal those jewels was so deep that he wasn't interested in any of this.
Because he had committed so many sins, and even one Pandit said, you look like you have committed many sins, and I can do a puja which will wash away all your sins. So, but Govardhan was not interested in any of this. He says, no, I need to find Krishna. He said, can you, and he became really upset and took out his knife. He said, if you say another word, then all of you will be gone. He says, I just need to know where Krishna is. And they said, okay, Krishna is over there. Then there is a path to Vrindavan.
So then they direct him to the path of Vrindavan, and he finally gets it. Yeah, there's another thing that he inquires from this Pandit, which is that what are his habits? So one of the habits is, of course, that he likes butter mixed with sugar candy. But then he also wants to know when's a good time to grab this boy, right? Because is he ever alone, or is he always surrounded by his friends? And so he tells him, he says, yes. He comes every morning with his cows and his calves for cow grazing. And then he plays with his friends and is continuously surrounded by his friends. But right around 11 o'clock, between 11 and 12, he tells all his cowherd friends, his boyfriends, to go to sleep. Because right at 12, he needs to go and meet his most special friend. And we all know who that special friend is, right? Srimati Radharani. So he needs to sneak out to meet her at this noon time. So that's the only time when you can actually find him all alone. So now when Govardhan is walking to Vrindavan, it's right at around 11 o'clock he arrives there.
And there from a distance he sees a group of boys playing together, and he tries to focus, okay, is there somebody special in that? And then he spots this blue boy who's between, he's among these other boys who are playing, and there is a transcendental kind of a light that is coming out from his body, and he's very, very beautiful. And Govardhan tries to take a peek. He starts going closer to that group, and he starts looking very intensely.
So yeah, when he sees Krishna, he sees that Krishna is playing with his friends, and he has these beautiful, just like the Pandit described, he has this beautiful crown, and he has beautiful necklaces around his neck, which are made of pearls. And then he sees that how Krishna goes to the Yamuna river, and he breaks apart those necklaces, and he starts feeding these pearls to the swans. And Govardhan is thinking, no, please don't do that.
Save them for me.
Save them for me. Those are precious. But in Vrindavan, the swans actually take that and they feed on that. And of course, this is all transcendental play going on. And so finally, Krishna, he comes back to the cowherd boys and he tells them, go to sleep. We're all tired. Why don't you sleep and rest for some time? And the cowherd boys really don't want to sleep because they just want to continue to play with Krishna. So finally, Krishna somehow coaxes them and convinces them that, let's take rest for some time and then we'll get up and we'll continue our play.
And then Krishna puts them to sleep somehow, and then he starts walking. But then a peacock comes and it starts making loud peacock sounds, and that wakes up all the cowherd boys. So now everybody is awake again, and they're not letting Krishna go. So Krishna has to finally first put the peacock to sleep, and then you're tired, you should take some rest. So puts the peacock to sleep, and then he says, okay, I will also sleep now with all of you. So he now pretends to sleep with the rest of his cowherd boyfriends.
And so he puts his head on the lap of Dhumanga, and then, and then they all fall asleep. But of course, Krishna doesn't want to sleep because he wants to go meet Radharani. So then once he ensures that, okay, everyone is fast asleep, then he wakes up. And then he decides to then walk towards where he's supposed to have a rendezvous with Radharani. And then all of a sudden, Govardhan walks up. And then he's
hiding behind a bush, and he sees Krishna alone. So he jumps out of from behind the bush and then lands in front of Krishna. And he says, what is your name? And Krishna says, what is your name? So Govardhan says, my name is Govardhan. And Krishna says, my name is Shyamasundar.
So then he says, and your name is Govardhan, and you're just like a rock. You're just like, because Govardhan is actually a mountain of rocks. So you're just like a rock. And he says, and I know that you love to steal and steal and steal. And Govardhan says, how do you know that? How did you know that about me? So then Krishna says, because I'm also a thief. So that's why I can recognize another thief. He says, when I was a baby, when I was younger, I used to steal butter. Then when I grew older, I started stealing clothes of the gopis. And now I steal the hearts. So Krishna has all these beautiful names, Makhan Chor, which means the stealer of butter. He's also known as, what is he known as? Vastra. What does he call when he steals the clothes of the gopis?
Chirahari.
Chirahari? Yes, and now and Chittachor means he's a stealer of the hearts of the gopis. And so, yeah, Govardhan.
So then Govardhan is very excited. He said, he's just checking out everything and trying to match what the Pandita said. So he has a crown, he has earrings, he has the pearl under his nose, he has these necklaces. So he's not satisfied. He said, are you dressed like this every single day? He just wanted to make sure that tomorrow maybe he doesn't miss out. So he said, no, today actually I was in a rush. So I woke up late and I didn't have enough time. So Mother Yashoda, she didn't really get enough time to dress me properly. So this is half done. So Govardhan becomes very excited.
So then Govardhan says, can I get this? can I get this from you? And Krishna says, no, if I were you, I would not try to steal anything from me because I have 33 crores of servants. And as soon as you touch me, they'll come and they will catch you. So, you should not try to do this. But then he says, but if I were to give it to you, then you would be okay. So then Govardhan says, would you give it to me? So Krishna says, yes, but provided you give me something in return. So Govardhan says, what can I give you? And then he remembers he has the sugar candy and butter. So he takes it out and he says, okay, I got the sugar candy and butter for you, so you can have this. So Krishna says, how did you know that? I love sugar candy and butter. In fact, this is why I would go stealing in Vrindavan, is to find this butter. It's my favorite dish. And so Govardhan says, okay, let me feed you. So Krishna says, no, I'm not going to let you do that. So Govardhan says, now what happened? He says, because I am a thief and you are a thief.
So I know how your mind works.
I know how your mind works. You might have put some kind of a sedative or something in this butter. So that way, once I eat this, I will become unconscious and then you can steal everything from my body. So I'm not going, and I'm not going to let you do that.
He said, yeah, so first you have to eat this and then only I will eat this. But you cannot eat it on your own because you know where you have put the sedative in the butter. So you will only eat the portions which don't have the sedative and then feed me the portion that has the sedative. So I'll feed you just so that you cannot cheat me.
And the reason why Krishna actually is doing this is because Krishna is aware that for the last 3 days, Govardhan has had nothing to eat. He's just been walking and he's only been chanting and he hasn't taken. So Krishna wants to first make sure that he's fed. So Krishna takes the butter and he starts feeding Govardhan. And once Govardhan starts eating, he realizes how hungry he is and how tired he is. And he just keeps eating. And it is described that, when we make an offering, in traditional, temples, when an offering is made to Lord Vishnu, there are so many rituals and it's done with so many mantras. And here Krishna is just, taking that butter and he's just feeding Govardhan. And after he is done feeding, then he takes that and then he eats it.
So finally he finishes up the whole bowl and then Govardhan says, well, you didn't leave anything for yourself. I mean, what are you going to eat? He says, no, I'm okay. I'm just a simple village boy. I mean, we just eat simple things and this butter. I mean, and then finally what Krishna does is there's only a little bit of butter left on his fingers. And so he licks it up. He says, oh, this is good for me.
So then he says, all right, now can I get your necklaces and your ornaments? And he says, yes, but you cannot touch my body because Krishna's body is so soft that even when a leaf falls on that body, then there's an imprint that it leaves on his body. So Krishna says, I will give you these ornaments. So Krishna takes out his golden crown and he hands it over to Govardhan. And then he, gives him the necklace from his neck. And then he starts to take out all the ornaments that he has. But finally, when he gets to the
so he's taking out the crown and the earrings, and then Krishna has this big pearl under his nose, and he wants to take that out. It's called the elephant pearl, and this Krishna says, "I want to give you this pearl. This pearl is very special. When Gajendra, the king of the elephants, was caught by the crocodile and then rescued by Lord Hari, who's an expansion of Vishnu, then Gajendra gave this as a gift to Lord Hari." And somehow this was passed on to Mother Yashoda, and then she put it on my nose. And this pearl is very beautiful because when Krishna breathes in and breathes out, this pearl shakes. And because of Krishna's his hue of his body, there is a reddish hue that appears on this pearl. And the gopis, when they look at that shaking pearl and the reddish hue on that pearl, they just go crazy. The beauty of the pearl and Krishna's beauty. So Krishna really wants to give that pearl to Govardhan, and Govardhan says, no, because Govardhan starts looking at that pearl and he himself gets captivated by that pearl. He says, no, this pearl looks so beautiful on your nose, I don't want to remove this.
So then Krishna says, oh, don't be sentimental, you're a thief, and this is part of your, thievery ethics, that this is very precious and you must get it, this is not the time to become sentimental. So then Krishna takes out that pearl and then he hands it over to Govardhan. And then finally, Krishna comes to his anklets. And that particular day, Mother Yashoda had put those anklets And she had gone through great, because Krishna dances and he jumps around in the forest. So the ankle bells were tied very tightly together. And Krishna tried very, very hard to unclasp it, but he could not. So finally he put his foot in front of Govardhan and he says, now you
I can't
please,
take it out.
I cannot take it out. You're a thief. You're used to opening doors and, and doing all kinds of things. Why don't you open up these ankle bells? So there it is described that the yogis, they meditate for thousands and thousands of years just to get a glimpse of one of the rays that is emanating from one of the toenails of Krishna.
Not to speak of touching his feet or even getting a particle of dust. It is said that Lakshmi Devi, who is the consort of Lord Vishnu, she meditates for a long period of time just to get a speck of dust from Krishna's feet outside Vrindavan. She's not allowed inside Vrindavan. And so this Govardhan thief, what is even difficult or very difficult for Lakshmi to achieve, Krishna allows him to touch his feet.
So by this time, Govardhan is overcome with symptoms of ecstasy. So the tears are just flowing from his eyes, and his body, the hair on his body is just standing on end, and he's trembling, and he's just overcome with so much of emotion. And
he holds Krishna's feet and he starts crying. He just breaks down, just holding.
And then he
Krishna's feet.
says that actually you're a bigger thief than I am. He says, no one has ever been able to steal from me, but you have actually stolen my heart. And now, I only have one request and one desire, that will you please allow me to decorate your beautiful body? So Krishna says, that's not possible. Mother Yashoda decorates me, and you are not very trained up. You don't have, I don't think you have that kind of a sense to dress someone. So if Mother Yashoda sees me dressed up in this way, she may get very upset. So
then Govardhan insists, and Krishna says, okay, go ahead and dress me up.
So then Govardhan dresses up Krishna very, very painstakingly, and he puts the bracelets back, and he puts the nose ring and the earrings, he puts everything back. But when he comes to the helmet, to the crown, his hand is shaking because Krishna is, teasing, and he's in a very playful mood, and he's overcome with emotion. So he has a very hard time. Anyways, finally he manages to dress up Krishna, and Krishna says to him, all right, I'll see you tomorrow, and I have to go back. So he goes back, back to his home, and Mother Yashoda sees him in the evening. And she says, you look very different, Krishna. What is going on? And then she says, so then Krishna says, yeah, there's this devotee of mine who dressed me. Yeah, Mother Yashoda says actually that you look very beautiful. It seems like someone else has dressed you. So yeah, he says, yes, I have this devotee in the forest who has dressed me. So Mother Yashoda says, he's done such a wonderful job. Maybe I can meet him.
Why don't you bring him tomorrow, and then he can assist me every morning to dress you up?
And then he says, no. He's a man of the forest, and he's not a person that you would like to meet, So you leave him alone, and you are the one, you should just dress me tomorrow morning. So then Mother Yashoda dresses him. So it's described.
So then what happens is that after that, it's night time. So Krishna goes to sleep, but Krishna cannot sleep because he's constantly thinking about this thief.
He's remembering this thief and is missing him, and he's just, all night long, he stays awake just thinking of this thief. And the next day he goes back to the forest.
He rushes. In the morning, Krishna just wakes up and I have to go and meet this guy. So he rushes up and runs to meet this thief.
And then for the next 7 days, they spend time just talking and spending time and just just really exchanging loving exchanges with each other. And by the 7th day, Govardhan's ecstasy cannot be contained in this mortal frame. So he actually gives up this body, and Krishna gives him a place in the spiritual realm in Goloka Vrindavan as one of the assistants. And then that's, so maybe one day we'll get to meet Govardhan. But this is this very beautiful pastime that was actually narrated by Prabhupada. And Prabhupada narrated this story in a very brief way. And then Sachinandan Maharaj took this story, and I think he found the original source, and he's expanded on this very, very beautiful pastime.
Should I share that link?
Yeah, maybe, but maybe.
Yeah, I'll share that link.
And so, the story, as it shows that, it kind of shows us the stages of bhakti, that how just by coming in contact and just by hearing just a little bit, even reluctantly, how one's life and one's heart can get transformed. and that how there is no impediment to approaching Krishna. As long as one has greed, then one can actually approach Krishna. And Krishna is very, very ready to receive us, you know. So yeah, we'll stop here, and you know, we'll wait for your reflections or comments. Yes, love the story. Actually, we heard this story when Sachinandan Maharaj came to our house many years ago, and he was, you know, we had a program in our basement.
Oh, that's when he said the story?
Yes, that's when he narrated the story, and we were completely struck by.
Very good.
Okay, just 1 second. Let me wait. So yeah, we'll now wait for your comments.
Go ahead, Swarna.
Is it Delia?
It,
Okay, yes, Swarna.
it was very, very funny.
Yes, yes.
That's for sure. And it definitely taught us a lot.
Thank
Definitely taught a lot about the stages of bhakti.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Delia.
I think it's so true that you can start out with one intention that's not necessarily like the pure intention, and then end up with another. And I feel like a lot of times people think that one has to be very holy in order to approach God, and we see our faults and we're kind of ashamed to approach God in that mood or in that form, when in reality it's quite the opposite. God, you know, you approach it and then gradually you get purified, and your life, you know, all of these things happen as a byproduct. And maybe like I know for me initially, like what I wanted was just to like not feel so bad in my life all the time, you know. And I was one of those people. I was one of those like liberation chasers, like just get me out of here, you know. Like I just what do I have to do to, you know, like become enlightened or whatever. But like I wasn't thinking of it in terms of like a relationship with God. But still, like there was like a calling out. Like you mentioned, oh, if just one tear is shed or what. I have cried so many tears of just being like of surrender, really. Being like I can't do this on my own. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I know there's something out there, so whatever, calling out. And I think I didn't like, now that I'm hearing this story, I'm like putting the pieces together that these experiences that I'm telling all of you about happened quite some time ago, like years. And I didn't really realize that maybe that calling out that happened a while back was really when like I started approaching Krishna, and Krishna started approaching me, the 1,000 steps, like you said earlier. But to the point where I'm rambling now, sorry. But like my intention was one thing, and now farther along the path, yeah, you start shedding those initial intentions, and then you just say, Krishna, I just want you.
So beautiful. So nicely said. I really like that term that you just came up with, liberation chaser. It kind of reminded me of these ambulance chasers, you know. Really like that, liberation chaser. Yeah, and it's true, you know. It's you know, it doesn't matter whatever our intention is, you know.
Yeah, Krishna is said in the Bhagavatam, kamat, krodhat, bhayat, dvesha, that if you approach Krishna with lust, with anger, with fear, or even with envy, no matter whatever emotion you have, just chase him, because he will accept you and he will transform you. So.
Okay. Okay, we'll come to that in a little bit. Bhakti Lata, your question is good, and we'll discuss that for sure. Any other comments or reflections? No? Yes, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
So today before session, I did not even know that I had two questions in my mind. Both were answered. First was, off late, I was feeling a bit disconnected.
Hmm.
Seems like, okay, I mean, you have those ups and downs moments, right? When you feel connected and then you feel disconnected. So off late, that's the feeling which was going in, and whatever you do, you don't just feel into it. And I did not know what's going on, and that lead to another thought and feeling that maybe it's not for me. I mean, I'm not worthy of it at all. And those thoughts were like coming, and there were 3 days last week we did not come to the Sangha.
Yes.
And that actually, it's like we missed something which, so anyways, I mean, that feeling was taking over and over and over. So when it started today with that flower thing, that seed and bhakti and all that, and then the story actually answered both the questions. I mean, so I'm pretty happy today. So
Oh, we're so happy.
Yes, we are happy. We are missing you
We're
guys.
missing you so much. I asked Radhika, so where are they? You know, so it's so nice. And you're right. You know, these are moments when we see. I remember Nimai actually said something that really was very nice when he first saw this chart. He said, "Oh, I'm on the chart." You know, so that's such a good feeling that I'm on this chart. Yeah, of course, I have my on days and off days, but as long as I stay on the chart and don't get discouraged, then our future is very, very bright in Krishna consciousness, no doubt, you know. So
I mean, there are two things. One is like we measure ourselves pretty harshly actually. That is the nature of every conditioned being. We are most judgmental towards ourselves. So when we see others or whatever, and then we see, oh, I'm nobody, I'm nowhere. But we have to always understand these things from Krishna's point of view. And from his point of view, we are very, very special, because he already says that so many times in the Bhagavad-Gita. He says that out of thousands of people, one tries to find the truth, and out of such thousands of people, one approaches me. So anybody who approaches Krishna or even calls out his name even once, that person becomes very special to Krishna. So there is no question of us feeling, of course, we have to keep going forward and then develop our love more and more. But in Krishna's eyes, we are already very special.
actually, even before we take up this process, just like what Delia was saying, this is very, very, this is something we hear all the time, and we can attest to it also. Like even in my own life, you know, I've had those moments way before I knew who Krishna is. I mean, I can share my own story. When I was getting engaged to Lokadaksha, I actually remember going up to the top of we have a terrace in India, just crying. It's like, why are you sending me to America? I want to know you, and I want to you're sending me to a place where there will be no one to tell me about you. And so why are you doing this? And it was just like and at that time, I didn't even know Krishna or anything. It's just a desire to connect. And, you know, as soon as we landed here, you know, Krishna had a plan. So just that one single calling out, like, okay, I want to know you. That's what Krishna has been waiting for forever and ever, right? So it's very powerful. So one should never underestimate, this journey. Anybody else? And we'll come back to Delia, and then Bhaktilata also has a question. We'll come back to that. Thank you, Amrita. Thank you, Amrita. You know, we're just really amazed and so grateful for your presence. And it's really nice. Shashi Prabhu, do you have any any comments or thoughts? Juma, or otherwise maybe we'll just take Ranji. Huh? Yeah.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Yeah, Pratibha is saying there are times we do feel like we have reached a plateau, and that's okay. Yes, yes, the plateau is not completely natural. So I guess Lata's question is, how does this devotee having the intention of stealing compare to Kamsa or Shishupal constantly meditating on Krishna inimically?
Yeah, this Govardhan was not inimical towards Krishna. He just wanted some profit for himself. His plan was very, very simple. He didn't want to harm Krishna. He didn't want to harm anybody related to Krishna. He just wanted to get his crown and be done with it. So, and he actually served Krishna in a favorable way without any intention of harming him. So he was constantly calling out to Krishna's names. He was planning to do some service. So he did hearing and he did chanting. He also planned for some service to Krishna by offering him some butter and all that. Shishupal and Kamsa and these people, they did not do any of that.
Also, in this we forgot to mention in that story, that he also collected some Agyata Sukriti. So this is a very important concept. And bhakti happens because of the cumulative effect of what's called unknowingly performing devotional service. So in the Govardhan's case, we forgot a little detail that last day, when the priest finishes the whole thing, he says, okay, people can give a donation. So Govardhan thought, oh, I don't give anything, that's not me. He's the one who goes around stealing. But finally he thought, hey, I am just making a plan for this biggest, a theft, of my life. What's a little few, whatever, rupees, what's the big deal? So he actually goes and he puts a little bit of money and offers it to this, the speaker. So that giving that Govardhan actually engages in, so those two things actually start him on the path of bhakti. One is the hearing, and the other is the rendering of some service to this devotee.
And plus he develops faith in the devotee.
Yeah.
He develops faith in the devotee and follows his instructions, like where to find him. He's not doubting him. He accepts whatever the priest says. So he has many qualifications, and his case is completely different from Shishupal and Kamsa. Although Krishna was very merciful to both Shishupal and Kamsa, they both got Sarupya liberation, which means they were promoted to the Vaikuntha planet. But this Govardhan was promoted to the Goloka planet because he was filled with love.
So,
thank you. Nice story. Nice story. And also, it's same as even if we approach Krishna with some material desire, Krishna purifies it. It's something maybe is similar to that. And the way he goes and asks, where can I find, that is big. And then constant meditation on Krishna.
There's actually a very similar story with Prabhupada also, where some thief came to steal Prabhupada's watch. But he would just come every day and listen to Prabhupada's class.
And then keep looking at the watch.
Keep looking at the watch. And he got purified.
And he became a disciple of Prabhupada. And Prabhupada actually gave him that watch after he became a disciple.
Naji, any thoughts from you? And then we'll end.
Thank you.
Oh, no thoughts from me really, I would say.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Oh yeah, Delia had a comment before we ended. Constant meditation is true. Go ahead, Delia.
Yeah, you said that when somebody reaches the stage of nishta, things move really quickly after that. And I think I understand why, which is once you reach the point of unshakable resolve, that time ceases to matter. It doesn't, and where you are really doesn't matter anymore, how far along you are, how far along you still have to go, because you just know that as long as you stay on the path, and by the time you reach unshakable resolve, you know that you will be, you know that you'll get there.
Yeah. And I think it's a whole journey where you've overcome our biggest blocks within the heart, right? So it's like climbing a mountain, and then sometimes that happens, right? You go on a hike and there's a little bit of an uphill climb, and then it just it's just natural. It's very natural.
You feel like I know there are challenges, I know there might still be things coming, I know I still have things to work out, but as long as
as long as I think, and I know we keep going back to this, our own experience, and based on what we have experienced and also based on what we have heard, is one simple mantra: just show up. It doesn't matter.
Stay in the association of devotees.
Stay in the association of devotees. Just show up, and even if you don't understand, even if
you're not interested, the mind is saying no.
Even if you cannot follow anything, this is not for me. We have seen this. As long as a person shows up, it's amazing. This is what it means. Whatever motivation, right? Just finding that place and just showing up, you'll see that Krishna's magic will start transforming your heart.
And even if you don't pay attention, 99% of the time, you don't pay attention, you're doing your own thing, still kind of being in that.
Keeping that vibration, it's very, very powerful. So that is a simple way of actually making a lot of progress. So thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Daryl, Ashley, beautiful comments, Stefano.